that is interesting. At the end of the Cold War, January 91, only 10,000 UN soldiers were involved in stability operation. At that time, the buzzword was peacekeeping operation. It was buffer zones. So only 10,000. And then suddenly we went up to 80,000 with UNPROFOR, Bosnia, Somalia already, and Rwanda. A few years later, 96, everything down. The UN system is totally obsolete, not working well, it's stupid, change that. Okay. And since 99, more and more. We are now 120,000 UN soldiers scattered all over the world. And I am not speaking about NATO, neither EU, only UN. Okay? Look at that. Since the end of the Cold War, 48 operations led by the UN. And if you compare with the number of operations during the Cold War, you can see that, again, more and more. More and more operations, more and more nations involved. For what reason more and more nations? In order to be efficient? No. Because most of the UN soldiers are provided by non-Western nations. 50% of the UN soldiers are provided by Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Ghana, etc. 50%. Where are the Western forces? Where are the Western forces? Because the Western diplomats are pushing for intervention everywhere. Go back to Somalia now. Go back to, because now it's a new operation which will be headed by the EU in order to train the newly established Somalian army recently. Okay. If you have a look only to the Middle East, you can see there, just a focus on that, UNSO 1948. True surveillance, is it still useful? It's the only organization who have the possibility to shuttle between Jerusalem, Damascus, and Beirut. I was there. It was not totally useless to have this possibility to shuttle through the Golan Heights, etc. So from an intelligence or information perspective, from a journalist point of view, interesting. From a military standpoint, stupid, useless. But from a political perspective, interesting. We can continue to add organizations or missions, but it's very difficult to close an international mission. Here on the Golan Heights, since 1974, as long as there is no peace treaty between Damascus and Tel Aviv, that will stay there. UNIFIL, UNIFIL, 78. Is it useful to continue that way? And that is the basic point. It's costly. It's nerve-wracking. Is it useful? My answer is yes, it's useful. Because at least that is helpful to diffuse the tensions and to save a certain number of lives. But for those, as I was in the good old days, who are conducting these missions, believe me, it's not pleasant. What are the so-called stability operations, the new word for I dare this definition, which explains to you the difficulty. It's not a military mission. It's military and civilian. It's not mission, it's activities. It's broad. Across the spectrum of conflict, from peace to conflict, and the difficulty there to establish or to maintain order is an army designed, trained, equipped to maintain order somewhere. No. Police, but not military. And to maintain order in states. And that is also an explanation. Now the crises are more and more internal conflicts, ethnic conflict, religious conflict, but not conflict, a state against another state. So it's the evolution of the war. The war, as we have known since the beginning of the 17th century, let's say the Westphalian style conflict, is disappearing, and now it's a transformation in more ethnic internal conflict. These missions can be dispatched and split over in a certain number of terms. But what is the similarity between a humanitarian assistance missions and a state capacity building? For a military, it's not exactly the same. To provide security for reconstruction or to conduct the newly rediscovered word of counterinsurgency. Counterinsurgency? No, never before. That has been rediscovered in 2007. After 2007, by General Petraeus, who rediscovered the writing of a certain number of authors, because in Iraq it was not an insurgency. I don't know what that was, but it is an insurgency. In Afghanistan, it is an insurgency, using terrorist technique, guerrilla technique, but it is an insurgency. But we are blind, or we have been blind, not to recognize that it was insurgencies. And we are not using the techniques that we know in order to counter an insurgency. It's the reason why we are losing in Afghanistan. NATO is losing in Afghanistan today. Bon, a politically driven process, because the military is not the leader in peacekeeping operation or stability operation. It's political operation. And winning the battle, the buzzword inside the US forces, we want to win the battle. Oh yes, you knocked down Saddam very easily after 3 weeks, brilliantly. But then you are still there stuck in Iraq. So this is only a tactical goal, an intermediate goal. The problem is there. What kind of political objective do you pursue before deploying forces? And the difficulty of stability operation is there. That is to say, between winning the battle to go back to a kind of normalization with surge of violence in between, the complexity, the duration of that. It's just a small sketch, but in order to explain to you where are located stability operations in the spectrum of conflict. So my reflection is there. Now, today, less and less Westphalian type conflict, and more ethnic or internal conflict with political rivalries, etc. In Bosnia-Herzegovina, in Kosovo, in Darfur, in Côte d'Ivoire, it's that. And the third element, which pollutes everything, is that. Now, we have religiosity. We have religiosity, especially with Islam, and that is a drama. Because there is now a mixed between the political dimension and the political, and the religious dimension and the political dimension. Those who are willing to reestablish